Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 129th episode of Friday at 5. Uh, Today, as mentioned in the last episode, we talk about something that a lot of us think we know about. Like these are very generic terms, socio-emotional learning. But now that it has a new sort of impetus through the NEP and the NCF, and is also starting to be recognized as a full separate subject within the school domain. In today's webinar, we would aim to understand what socio-emotional learning, or SCL as we call it, is, and what are some of the strategies or some ways through which we can not just acknowledge these domains, but also use it in a way to enhance the overall school systems and processes. Today, we look at nurturing socio-emotional learning in schools for lifelong success. And as usual, the reading source we have for today is the NCF for School Education 2023. So, as I had sort of said right in the beginning, when we look at these three terms, socio-emotional learning, we feel that we definitely know what this means, or we know what it entails. But just for the purpose or like an equalizing factor, I'm going to start the didactic with a little definition of, no, not definition, like what these terms sort of have within them. So as you can see that the third term here is learning, but the question becomes, learning what? Like, what are we looking at when we focus on SCL within the school curriculum? We look at abilities or learning methods that would enhance focused thinking, managing behavior, building positive relationships, and understanding and dealing with feelings. So as you can see that these four points are, they come from a behavioristic approach, and it one may wonder, like, how can we teach these things, or how can we facilitate these things in a school? But experts, scholars, and the document reiterates it again and again that school is the most ideal place to actually enforce and reinforce behavior patterns within students. And while we have a generic understanding of schools or school systems where we only focus on the academics, over time understanding has also changed towards towards the side that behavioral change and these colossal changes that a child can intake, one schools can be a very big instrument in facilitating that. So when we look at social emotional learning, there are three domains that it primarily sort of taps into. The first one is cognitive. So when we talk about cognitive goals, cognitive domain, we think about the ability of a student to be able to set goals, to be able to plan, enabling and enhancing, and having the transitions within himself or with others smoothly. It focuses on memory and also on attention. So these are some of the things that the cognitive domain of SCL looks at. Moving on with social, the second domain that we identify here is social. Here, the focus is on the ability or the capacity to being able to express emotions, uh, identifying emotions. So I think it is also important to differentiate between, vocabulary or terms like that. Being able to express emotions or being able to identify emotions are two very separate things. Uh, Historically, these these niche subjects or these niche topics were not really picked upon, or even if it were, they were not documented in the way that these are being done now. So in the contemporary India, in the schools of today, it is very, very important to be able to, as educational practitioners, to be able to differentiate between these factors. Moving on, we have the ability to be able to regulate emotions and behavior. And lastly, being able to take multiple perspectives. So relating it to the concept of tolerance or acceptance, and just being able to move ahead with multiple perspectives in mind. And the third domain and the last domain here is of emotional, where we look at the ability to understand social cues, the ability to be able to resolve conflicts, cooperation, and lastly, we talk about why social emotional learning, is in the limelight in today's time, in contemporary times. The first point here is that SEL is universal and it is developmental, which very simply means that these traits, so we looked at cognitive, social, and emotional, these are not specific to a particular region or a particular grade or a particular kind of school. But since this deals with humans, since this deals with students, uh, we also consider these traits universal, right? And the skills that we just sort of discussed are something that are accepting and needed or sort of required everywhere. And they also focus on a holistic development. So it is high time that we as school systems and education practitioners do look into or tap into this domain of SCL, primarily because this is something that we sort of come to face with every day. And the second aspect and the most primary reason, in like my opinion here, is that it is that effective instruction is limiting. So what does this mean? Like, academic instruction or effective instruction only goes till a certain way. And I think time and again, I mean, we've had 128 episodes before this, and I don't need to press on the fact that uh you know if the child and the teachers and the general school systems environment, mental health, if these things are not in place, effective instruction or academic instruction can only go till a certain limit. Beyond that, you need these support systems to be able to enhance and to be able to maximize the potential that we envision for our classrooms and for our schools. So with this, I end this didactic, and I'm hoping that we will be able to get, more answers and more perspectives from the panelists that we have on board today. So, Rupali, madam, if I can start with my first question to you, and as a little primer to the audience, if you could just quickly, sort of tell everybody as to, according to you, what are some of the key components of an effective SEL program? So, simply, how can we identify the core elements that make SEL programs successful in promoting intelligence, awareness, and and other sort of keywords that we use? Yeah.
So if we talk about in SEL, we work on five things, basically five pillars we say. So we start with self-awareness of the student. And there it's very important to know the acceptance. So whatever they are, they need to accept that also. So their strengths, their area of improvement. Then comes the social awareness, where empathy is very important, where they should know how to understand the perspective of others. Which I think nowadays it's very important. The empathy, if we all have, then it will be a very different world, which I believe. The third thing on the self management, there are a lot of emotional regulation is important. So we don't ask them to suppress their emotions. Mm, Otherwise we always tell, if you're angry, suppress that, but then that is not going to be useful. So how to regulate their emotions? First, how to identify the emotions and how to regulate their emotion, that is very important. The fourth one is the on the responsible decision making. So when we are reaching at a decision, so how to do the due diligence and how to reach at a decision which will be acceptable to them as well as to others. And the fifth point is on the relationship skills, whether it's personal relations or whether it's the professional relation. And communication, assertive communication, conflict resolution, all this becomes a part of the relationship skills, because then only you will be able to build good relationship. So
Right.
on these five parameters, basically SEL is built upon.
Sure. Just to sort of add on to this, I would also just want you to sort of think of, or maybe we can come back to later with this. But my question here is that why in schools? Like these are also traits that can be taught at home or can be regulated, because you have parents with you, you have family also. Because we continuously talk about relationships here or awareness, there has been an understanding that schools are for a certain purpose. But what is the role of SCL within educational context? Like why are we suddenly hearing these terms, and why are universities and schools incorporating this as a separate
Yeah.
subject together? Yeah.
So, if we see, so SCL is a part of another program that is called Face the World. So,
Mm.
Face the World means what? Face the World means now the students are in school, or since I teach the university students, they may be in diploma courses or in the degree courses.
Sure.
So, the next world will be of the corporate world. And
Mm.
many times we come across that the Indian youth is educated but not skilled.
Mm.
So, what does it mean? It means that the skills like teamwork, collaboration. So, we are not working in silos, we are working in a team. So, how to collaborate, how a group is formed, what are the various stages of group formation. So, it starts with storming, then you reach performing. So, these are all the natural. So, if you, even if you have conflict in a group, we tell them that's a natural process of group formation. So, when the student will become a uh, will become an employee or is doing own entrepreneurship, then that person will know, okay, this is a natural process, there's nothing to be offended about it. So this is a part of collaboration, how to do the problem solving, how to resolve conflict with stating his or her opinion in an assertive way, not hurting sentiments of others. So here relationship skills is also there, personality is also there, as well as a good, as a good team member, the competency is required. So all these skills are, otherwise we know from our culture, with our background, we must have these skills. But then we have come across students, then they are not aware of these things.
Sure.
So, and they like it also when, and these are all experiential learning. It's
Hmm.
not a result, it's a process. So
Sure.
we have a very holistic approach towards teaching all these things.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Rupali, madam. Ragini, ma'am, I'll come to you with my next question, which is what are the role that teachers can play in promoting SCL, or to make it sort of more niche, like what are some of the responsibilities or sort of strategies that educators can employ to support students' socio-emotional development?
Thank you, Lavina, for this question. Lavina, there's a term called stereotyping that we often use when we are facilitating or delivering our lectures in the class while we are teaching SEL to our students. And there's a stereotype also about student-teacher relationship or the presence of teacher in the classroom. The teacher is supposed to hold the position of authority in the classroom. The first stereotype that we break in our SEL classes is that we work in partnership and we don't work in the position of somebody subordinate to us, or we are in the position of authority. So for teachers, I mean, SEL works for us, SEL teaches us, it evolves us as a person. So it is very important. Like, I would just add one more thing, that at school level also, or even at university level, SEL has to be a mandatory part of our curriculum. And how teachers can play a role is that with a little tweaking in their behavior, with a little modulation in the way we deliver our lectures, we can make very substantial differences in the class. So at times what happens, we all, I mean, you all would agree that we come from a generation where classroom for us was 90% of the times the teacher will come explain us the concepts, we will listen, take notes, and if we have any doubts, we'll question. But now I see, I mean, even in my 9-year-old son, I see that now, he also has SEL in his school, and I see that now he has a sense of belongingness to what the teacher is delivering in class. So his questions are not only based on his inquisitive nature, But there are a lot of whys, that if I am studying something, why am I studying it? Because a classroom is owned by both teacher and student. So if the teacher is taking an effort in explaining you the concept, the student is taking effort to understand that and understand the role and purpose of what the teacher is trying to tell you.
Oh.
And that is where SEL makes a difference in our teaching methodology. And there are reports, and in fact, speaking personally, I have spoken to a lot of academicians, and they do agree that introducing SEL has actually made a difference in the relationship or the rapport they had shared earlier with their students. Students are more participative, students are more active, students feel that they need to ask questions not just for the sake of being in the class, but also for sake of learning. So they are studying, they are learning, they are assimilating and absorbing. So all that is happening, and all thanks to the beautiful curriculum, that SEL has to cater to all of us.
Right. Because one thing that we have to sort of keep in mind is that this has also been implemented or being implemented in, like, in not every school, right? It's like it's coming up. It's like up and coming, as we all know, but it is in on an upward sort of ladder. So you did mention something very, very crucial, Ragini ma'am, about I mean, I'm just paraphrasing what you said, that how SCL is able to create a positive school environment and culture, right? So
Yes.
the impact of SCL in the overall atmosphere within a school or any sort of education system. And I too attest to that, because I myself have seen some changes with schools, and the HODs have come and said, ki, this helps. But for the purpose of making our audience understand, is there any instance that you can recall from your own
Yeah,
teaching?
definitely.
Yeah. Can you please
Definitely.
share that?
So, I remember I walked in a class of applied arts, at one of the campuses where I teach, and it's a women's college. So when I walked in and I asked each one of them their names, and I said, let's just do it a little differently. We all ask, what is your name, where you come from, what is your background? I said, let's just do it a little differently, because I opened my class by saying that it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where you're leading to. So I asked all my students that please tell me your name so that I can remember you by your name. Tell me, what do you want to do? What are your expectations from the SEL class? And one thing that you dislike. And they were all shocked, because it was SEL that enabled me to think a little different, think a little out of the box. And when I asked them, Lovina, that what is one thing that you dislike, you will not believe, but out of 35 students, 7 or 8 of them started crying while they were answering. Because we also have to understand that these students have seen global pandemic COVID, where we were all together, but still we were so engrossed, all of us, we were at home, there was nothing much to do, we were so restricted. These kids were not able to express, or rather I would say, we have never encouraged that. Somewhere we lacked that encouragement, that listen, if you are upset, you can cry, crying is okay. If you're feeling funny about something, laugh out loudly. It's okay to laugh out loudly. So when I asked them, there were two girls, and initially they came to my class with an attitude that it is just another class, we have to just get our 75% attendance and it's done. Lavina, I have seen stark difference in those two girls from day one and day 20th. They still call me. They tell me, ma'am, we did this, ma'am, we did that. And they are applied art students. They've made a YouTube page. They are pursuing people to follow their page. So they are good artists. But what they were lacking is that they did not know how to exhibit their art. They did not know how to talk about themselves. Because when I asked, tell me something about yourself, and they were all left thinking.
Mhm.
I mean, you are 16, 17, 18-year old, and if you can't say three, four lines about yourself, that says a lot, that how much time do we spend with our own self? How much reflection do we do? How much introspection do we do? I mean, they are kids, even as in adults. No, when I also do classes on mock interviews, and when I ask the candidates during mock interviews that tell me something about yourself, and all they can tell me is their name, maximum what they have studied and their background. Because we've always there has been an air around us that if we want to know someone, is we want to know them through their backgrounds. We hardly ask people, okay, you are Ragini, so what do you want to do, Ragini, after 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, or what do you look forward to every day? How does your day look like? But we ask, okay, what have you studied, where have you worked, who all are in the family? So, SEL has broken that stereotype. And I see this difference, Lavina, each day. And, I am not a teacher by training. I am a trained journalist, but I took up teaching just 3 years back. I'm a trainer as well. But this shift in the attitude of my students I mean, it has really kept up my spirit, you know, and that is really given me a way to look forward to things.
Right.
So it has definitely evolved me. And
Right.
I can say at least a few of them I'm able to, bring about some transformation in their life, so that at least they're able to talk about themselves. They are able to express their dislikes. If not likes, then at least their dislikes, that we don't want
Right.
this, we
And
don't like this.
sure. And I think something so vital that you said right now is that the development of yourself as well. Yourself meaning whoever
Absolutely.
is facilitating or taking part, because it's dialogical. Hi Ayushi, good evening. So my question here is, according to you, or I mean, as per your experiences, can you suggest some sort of ways, practical strategies or methods that will help us incorporate SEL within our everyday school activities? Is there anything you can think of?
It was mostly with children from first and second standard,
Hmm.
and then children from fifth and sixth standard.
Hmm.
So there was a little bit of a gap in what I taught. And one thing that I realized is that with all of them, all the age groups, what helps is if you're being as interactive as possible. So in
Sure.
my class, even if it's SEL, no matter what topic it is, instead of going ahead on the board and introducing the topic itself, I would explain. Like, let's say we're talking about bullying. So instead of writing on the board, like today we're here to talk about bullying, I would ask, like, what if someone does this? How would you feel? And then I would get them to label what they're going through. And that's when I used to tell them, okay, so this particular act is called bullying,
Mhm.
right? So this is what helped a lot. This way, it used to engage them because someone would say something funny, then there would be someone who would strike on say the right answer. This way they used to engage, and before I even introduce the topic or their mind goes, oh, I know this, they would know, okay, we're talking about something. So that way, that is one strategy that really helped me.
Right.
The other thing is, since I took only SEL classes, my classes used to be once a week.
Hmm.
Because with SEL you have to be like, it's not like other subjects where you could like teach constantly. There's very few things and you have to strategize everything, right? So in that aspect, before coming in, I would start before starting the class, I would start with a check-in. So check-ins and checkouts, I'm sure a lot of teachers here are like familiar with it. So I would make them revise whatever we learned last week. And the trick to do that was to leave them with an activity. Now,
Hmm.
since the classes were a week apart, a lot of kids did not do them as well. But the whole concept was, even if they've not done it, this is where we start. Okay, so I would ask them, okay, these were the points. What all do you remember? We would jot down the points there. And then before leaving the class, I would make sure that, hey, okay, so today we learned this, and the next time you're going to come with an activity. So these are the few things that helped me a lot.
Right. Before you go on to the next one, I'm very, very curious. I mean, if at all, if you're comfortable sharing it, because so what was this activity?
Let's say I was talking about decision making with them,
Okay.
right? So in one particular, in the whole class, we started talking about how difficult it is to actually come up with decisions. Like, even though for them it might be minor things, but then even they feel this whole stress about taking or choosing something. So that is what we talked about in the whole class. Then I asked them, what is it that you particularly feel difficulty around these days deciding? So they all wrote that. And in the and then I told them that I gave them a few suggestions, like how to think through if you're having a problem. So one of that was making a pros and cons list, right? So I taught them in the class, and then in the next class they were supposed to come up with, like, okay, let's say I have an issue selecting whether to go for playtime this in the 5 to 6 evening time, or should I stay back home and study instead. So they came up with pros and cons of the situation, and then we used to discuss that. Your personal experience.
Right. So again, I mean, what I could infer from this, I mean, I think excellent example was that, so we don't just stop with a yes or no. Should I go out to play at 5, 6? We're moving away from that MCQ sort of a framework where yes or no, but we're also exploring. If yes, then why? If no, then why? Dr. Kudba, I will come to you with a similar question, but from a leadership perspective. Yeah.
To my mind,
Yeah.
never the learning moment.
Sure.
In the sense, there is a gun-toting fellow who came and killed so many people. Discuss it. What would have gone wrong? The children will be in a position to tell you what it is. One hilarious example I'll give you. The boys would end up going to the washroom one by one and end up having fights there, put soap on the floor, skate. They used to do all this. Then the point came to me, and I was taking the SEL classes. So I said, okay, let me do one thing. I told the children, today it's going to be a class with a difference. We're going to have a debate. They like the debate. So 10th standard, mind you. So I said, okay, should I permit the children to go in groups to the washroom? So there are two sides now. One side has to say yes. The other side has to say no. And they have to give you reasons why it is a no. And all the skeleton came out of, fell out of the cupboard. And I got to know exactly what they do, why they do. And when I told them, this was the way in which I took, you did something which is not fair. You took all the ideas from us. You come to know now exactly what you do. But it was all done in a fun-filled manner.
Right.
They told me exactly what they do. And they themselves said it should not be done. Fine. So don't do unto others what you don't want something to be done to you.
Right. Right.
Those are golden words.
Right. And talking about SCL, because there's also this term called socio here, right, which has a lot to do with the societal implications or aspects or provisions, features, however, whatever, or however we sort of define it. So the second we talk about society, and we do tend to link it with culture, and especially in a context like ours, because I'm talking pan-India. There is a lot of diversity, as one can say, in the classrooms, right? There's a lot of diversity. We can never really foresee who is coming to our class, and there might be some common denominators in terms of, it could be class or it could be region, geographical, but there still tends to remain enough diversity and cultural differences between students. So are there any specific things that one should keep in mind, or something that one should consider on the cultural sensitivity and adaptability of SCL programs to meet a diverse student population? Rupali ma'am, can we come to you with this?
We have a very important session on stereotyping. So there are so many stereotypes in our country per se, and we begin with our own stereotyping, like the stereotyping as a faculty or a teacher I might have. So I say, even if you have to pull some chairs or bring some chairs, so there's a good tendency that I will consider boys as the stronger ones and I will ask them. But then it's not always true. Then we start the discussion on stereotyping. I explain that what kind of stereotyping I might have faced because of belonging to some region, belonging to some community, belonging to some a specific group. So I explain these are the stereotypes I have faced. Then I throw the question to the, because once I have expressed myself freely that yes, I have also gone through these things, then it becomes a little more convenient and the students become a little more expressive about maybe somebody's coming from a particular state and there are certain stereotyping with them. So then they explain and then we throw, is it right, should we judge people on from which state or from which community he or she is belonging? Then of course after a good discussion they say no, we should be respecting because of the talent or because of the person who you are, and not because of the background, from because we don't have any control over from where I am coming. So that brings us then what kind of stereotype we exhibit in front of others. Maybe somebody coming from northeast, so because of their facial features we call them different names or something. So then I ask them, so the same thing if we go to maybe US or somewhere else, they might be calling us by certain names, would you like that? They say no, no, it will be very humiliating. Then say then what is then what they have done? If they are in a northern state and they don't look like exactly like us, then just think how you would think in US. You will be feeling very bad, so the same thing they will be feeling like that. So then it brings a new kind of insight ki, yeah, same thing they might be feeling and we should not be calling by certain names to certain kind of people. So and also we have a conscious bias as well as unconscious bias because of our upbringing. Many a times we don't feel even that maybe it is hurtful to somebody, but then through videos, through discussion, we bring that concept also, that we might have some unconscious bias which we are not aware of also, and then we bring it to front ki, yeah, there can be, and we should be mindful about our unconscious bias also. So
Sure.
that's how we bring the discussion into the class.
Sure. Putting another light into this is also because we did mention twice about parents here, or home situations, if one can sort of bring that in. So the importance and the collaboration between schools and parents in reinforcing these emotional skills, because again, borrowing from my previous point about the social, a child spends say about 5, 6 to 8 hours in a school, but the rest of the time is at home or in the neighborhood. So what are some of the ways, or how, I mean, very simply, how can parents be involved in supporting SCL at home? And there's a reason why I'm asking this, is because a lot of times, which I think I'll also come to towards the end perhaps, that we may know what SCL is, we may read different definitions, we may hear things, but it's also very, very important to understand what SCL is not. Because a lot of people have multiple perceptions of what SCL is. In fact, every time we're starting a new class or we're orienting, it's actually a good exercise to ask students what they think SCL is, and you get a variety of answers, right? Which is not a problem, but I feel it takes away from the essence of what the subject actually means. And just some time back, somebody did ask me, oh, SCL, matlab emotions ke bare mein baat karna hai. Sure, it is one of the many things that SCL curtails. So, in that domain, I just wanted to explore the understanding of or how parents can be helpful in enhancing or promoting this. But Ayushi, yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
While ma'am was speaking about this whole thing where where you have to walk the talk, and similarly, like you said, parents should be involved and should know about it. So the activity that I gave, right, about decision making, a lot of the kids, what they think is their parents know everything, right? And my parent wouldn't go through with this difficulty, because usually you see parents in an authoritative role, right? So you're used to, I don't know, putting them on that pedestal. So when I gave them this activity, I also told them to go home and ask their parents also if they're going through something difficult when it comes to decision making, or how do you decide that, and asking for their opinion if they have a problem, but just for the opinion and considering it. So when I did that, a lot of them actually went ahead and asked them, and then it came back with the realization, oh, really, does my mom also have to choose between what to cook in the morning? Because nobody realizes that as well. Like it's minor things, but they are decisions, right? So, and once they asked the parents, even the parents were curious that what are they actually teaching them at school, that they want to know this about me. So I think yeah, I think that's how you kind of involve the parents as well. At least that's how I did it. But yeah.
Right, right. No, absolutely. Thank you so much. I was, I think, something that I think I'll also do tomorrow. Just again, it all comes boils in sort of awareness, right? As to what people in a similar space, if home can be called a space, how they are regulating. Ragini ma'am, can I come to you with a similar question? Because you were just in fact talking about your son also right in the beginning, and as a parent, as a teacher, what are some things that parents can help schools with, or
So,
if at all? Yeah, please.
yeah. So, Lovina, there are two things that I want to emphasize on when it comes to SEL and parent and the merger of parenting, keeping the essence of SEL alive. There are two things. The first thing is, in a particular age, kids imitate you. Imitation is their nature of learning. So when kids are in that age, the best way is to lead by example. If we teach our kids not to litter here and there, we should make sure that when we are throwing the trash, it has to go in the bin. When we tell them not to lie, we don't tell them that, okay, mama is here, but if someone calls up, just say that mama is not at home. These are very small things and we often pass it off as a joke. But then, if the child really thinks through this or is very attentive to details, and this is from my personal example, I mean, we also flip sometimes as parents. So my child turns to me and says, but you are lying, and you said that lying is bad. So the best way in a certain age is to lead by example. And the second thing I will just add to what Ayushi said and what I also tried in my class is parents have to be involved, but as fellow human beings. In my class, when we were talking about role models, or when we were talking about goal setting and decision making, I came across a response where the student said that I do what my father says or what my mother says. I said, why don't you think for yourself? Then that boy was very adamant and he said, I am very sure, more than anything, I'm sure of the fact that my parents would always choose the right for me. I said, and what if, God forbid, the choice goes wrong or the after effect is not according to what you had wished? He said, I don't know. I have no answer. And the child was a little perturbed. So I said, the day you put your parents down from the pedestal of just being parents and see them as fellow human beings, you will also start. And also, there was a lot of angst for certain things in that child, that my dad didn't do this, my mom didn't do this. As a parent, they are supposed to do this. So I said, when you put them down from the pedestal of just being parents, you also start forgiving them because they are also human beings, and to make mistake is being human. It is as simple as that. So it is both ways, Lavina. It is, I mean, with different age groups, parents play a different role. And I think when SEL comes into picture in our academics, a constant dialogue between the teacher and student and a fair system. I really sometimes don't understand when the teacher has to talk about the student, why the student is kept out of the discussion. I need to speak to your parents. But the execution part is on the student. The student has to understand that this is important and this is what my teacher and my parents feel I can do better at. So the student has to sit there. So there has to be, I mean, and Rupali would agree, we have also had curriculums designed in a way we talk about transparency in the system. We talk about a little fluidity in the system. We talk being a little flexible. Okay, you walk 2 steps, I'll walk 2 steps, and we'll see where we are walking each other home at the end of the day. So the involvement of parents should be at three level there. It has to be very much collaborative. You can't expect that a child is being taught in the class that you have to be empathetic towards people, and when he or she goes back home, parents say, be selfish, look after yourself first, don't think about rest of the world, you are my only child, my only focus. Secondly, sometimes where you have to be the parent, be the parent. Always being a friend will also not help. Sometimes when they need a channelization of their energy, you have to tell them that because experience has no shortcut, I am telling you out of my experience, you might learn it the hard way, but with these stories, if they help you, you're with little more effort, you will have more efficient results. And number three, of course, what I said is that at the end of the day, please, we have to teach our students to see even their parents or people in authority. Like, we are always taught if he's elder to you, has to be more respectful. And that is how, when kids are bullied in their own families by elders, they are unable to speak up for that. They're unable to speak up for themselves. That is because we have conditioned them to not speak up against people who are elder to them in age, or I mean, if in family they are very seniors. So if you start looking others also as fellow human beings, I think these things will be taken care of. And then it will be a very fair, open and healthy discussion. We'll be able to talk about various issues that are always, brushed under the carpet, or are always talked at home in a hush hush tone, or when our kids come, we are like, acha theek hai, just let's just get done with this and let us not talk about it. At every age, the right amount of understanding is needed to be conveyed in the most transparent way, Louina, is what I feel as parents, and that is their involvement when SEL comes into picture, with or without SEL. I mean, I'm also talking as a parent to a 9-year-old, and I'm also talking to you as a facilitator of SEL. I think this is my 2 cents on this.
So, for our listeners, can we think of any resources, or I mean, not resources actually, but like what are some of the support needed for teachers to effectively integrate SCL into their teaching practice, or what are some professional development activities, as one calls them? Yes, Dr. Kudba.
Dalai Lama had introduced this here in 2019 at Delhi. And there is this university. Just if you were to type in socio-emotional learning and Dalai Lama, it will pop up. And they have a playbook which is downloadable with several activities.
Nice.
So you can download it and you'll be able to use it in class.
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope that everybody who's on board with us here and other platforms, you have made this note. I too will do that. So it's Dalai Lama SCL. Apparently, if you type it on Google, you'll get a document. And of course, we can always take inspirations from the documents that are available to us. It is, I mean, we have like about 8 minutes left, and I'm left with 2 questions. So my first question here would be, as much as we do dislike the term assessment or effectiveness, because again, these are all slow processes, it takes time, change doesn't turn overnight. But again, because we are talking about a school system, there is a certain academic calendar, there are certain timelines. I think all of us agree with these things. Rupali madam, can you suggest some methods or ways in which we can actually assess how effective SCL has been in a classroom? Like, what are some skills, or what are some skills that we should be able to identify among students to know that yes, we're going the right way, because it's new to all of us, we're all learning.
So yes, in our university also we started at assessment as the MCQs, but then in the first sem only we done away with that because it's an experiential learning. Maybe the student doesn't know the technical terms, but if he or she is implementing in their life, that's the purpose. We want to create a better version of themselves. It's not a comparative thing that, oh, she's the topper and I am not. It's not that. It's whether end of the semester I am a better person or I am a better version of myself. That's our end result. That means we are not looking for perfection, we are looking for progression at all time. So we don't do, it's all teamwork and collaborative skills. We look at the behaviors, And we also have done a very nice thing, that's the community project. In one of the semester we have done that, and it has brought some very beautiful experiences for us. So the students have worked with has visited old age home, the Cheshire homes, the blind schools. Some have gone and given as become a dog feeder. They have worked in pet shelter homes, and the kind of life lessons they have learned from there, I think any university or any school can't teach them. So a girl who visited old age home, she said, now I will make it a point that I will call my grandmom every week, so I will not miss that. They have worked with differently able children. They asked them to do the hand printing of on t-shirts, and the day of the presentation they were wearing those t-shirts printed by those children. So that gave us such a nice feeling. And so the assessment should be on these kind of level, and not the, maybe I don't know how, what are the different stages of a team formation or the different technical terms, but if I'm implementing that, maybe 10%, maybe 15% of that in my own life, because it's a process, you keep on developing yourself, I think there what our job is done, so I'm satisfied with that only. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Ragini ma'am, please go ahead.
Lavina also, like Krupali very well, she put it, saying that it's not a, I mean, it doesn't end at some place. It's a continuous process. It's a learning. It's a journey. What I encourage my students, and what I really felt worked for me as well, is constant reflection and journaling of your reflections, so that you know that if you were at point X on day one, you are at point Z on day 20. And when you read that, when you look back, that looking back really gives you a sense of ownership towards your own self. It makes you happy that you've come a long way, so journaling, I think, would be another way to, because it's self assessment. There's nobody to judge you. If you're feeling happy today, if you're feeling extremely happy tomorrow, and from that you are satisfied in what you're doing, like there's a sense of ownership when the students had painted t-shirts and they're wearing it because they are owning it. So, a reflection, the activity of journaling definitely works. The community project definitely works. And I think one thing that should be made mandatory is a constant feedback for the facilitator and from facilitator to the class. It's very good because then, even the facilitator, no matter how much, how, I mean, if you are doing a lot of breathe in, you also need a breathe out, and that journaling, that feedback will give you a good breathe out. And I think it'll only enhance and accentuate the relationship between the facilitator and the students. That if there is something that the student wants the teacher to stress more on, or focus more on, or talk more on, so that the teacher would know, because these days the size of the class is big. It's not like 10 or 12 students in a class. It's like, I don't think it's less than 35 anywhere. So in that course, unknowingly, if we miss out on some things, because there are people who tend not to speak up in the class, they are under the constant pressure of being judged. I think a feedback definitely works. And we can get back to the child, and we can talk to them, and we can, discuss, okay, this worked for you, this didn't work for you, let us do it differently. So I think even that helps us to add some value to the evaluation part of it.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, Dr. Kudwa, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm talking about smaller children. You're dealing with the college students. It would be nice. We also take them through the SUPW programs and all that, whatever Rupali mentioned, the school children also do.
Yeah.
And they come and share. When they share, they work in a group. So somebody is making a presentation, somebody is talking about it. So and one person talks, the other person chips in. So you're also honing something else besides socio-emotional learning. You're honing the public speaking skills.
Yeah.
So sharing also helps them
Sure.
to reflect. Yes, this group did better than us. This group did something else which was more than what we did. So
Right.
that learning also happens. So
Right.
sharing, I think, is also very important.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah, we
ma'am.
should encourage them to tell stories, It's a great tool to learn from each other's story. It's a great way. Yeah, even for younger kids and also for elders, we love to tell stories, we love to hear stories. So I think, yeah, wonderful point, Dr. Pramila. Sharing would be like a beautiful thing.
We have like an odd man. I don't know if we have a whole minute left, but Ayushi, anything to close with? I mean, my question similar to you. Any sort of, I mean, actually, I would ask you, what would be like one skill that a teacher should make sure that, when they are facilitating SCL, the students should have quickly. Yeah,
It's going to be self-reflection always,
great.
because I think that's when you connect best with others, that's when you connect with the community. If you cannot connect with yourself first, so whatever you do, like ma'am said, it's experiential. So you can't just give them MCQs. So
Right,
maybe you can give them essays. So
right.
give them the space.
Sure. Thank you. It is 6 o'clock. Unfortunately, we will have to end, even though I mean, there's so much more to know about these things because, again, as we said, stories, they keep going. But I hope that everybody who was on board today is able to take back some ways, some methods, don't like want to call it strategies, but yeah, different ways in which we can maximize the provision of SCL that has been brought to us by the document, and we're able to be good practitioners ourselves, regardless of whatever discipline that we're teaching.